Hello, everyone, and welcome to the last few videos of the 90-day commitment. Congratulations on making it this far. So today's call is going to be on creating a solid retirement plan. So just going over some accounts that you may want to look into opening and just kind of piecing together everything that we've gone over so far. So a little disclosure, the purpose of this presentation is to explain financial concepts and educate people about the decisions they are currently making with their finances. This is not intended for any sales or suggestions of any financial products, but just to illustrate the probable outcomes of these scenarios. During this presentation, we ask that you do not take pictures so that we can preserve the integrity of this information. Please feel free to pause the video, take any notes. If you have any questions, please get in contact with the person who invited you or Angie, as this is her page, and we can make sure to address those issues. So the topics today are what to focus on at different stages of your life, determining your financial independence number, uncovering how much you might need to save, discovering the best accounts to use in order to save that money, planning for retirement, knowing what benefits you will receive come retirement from the government, and then how to prepare for that transition at the end. So this is an X curve. So what this pretty much shows is how as you get older, your responsibilities decrease. Your children grow up if you have children, your financial responsibilities decrease. Perhaps you've paid down your debt or paid off your home. So as you get older, that goes down. But as you get older, what also goes up is your wealth. So as you have less things to pay off, you end up having a little bit more in your pocket. So that's what we hope for, is that you build wealth, you lower responsibilities, and you end up with a little nest egg as you get older, and you can take care of yourself instead of taking care of everyone else around you while you're younger. So generally, less security when you're younger, more security when you're older is the goal. So before you start planning, you want to ask yourself a couple things. So a good way to begin your journey is creating a checklist. Regardless of your age, anyone with a will greatly benefit from creating a checklist to prepare for your retirement. So like we mentioned last video, you want to create an emergency fund. What this emergency fund is going to do is it's going to prevent you from relying on your credit cards and going into debt closer to retirement. It will also help to gain interest as you have your emergency fund. And what you also want to do is remember to always pay yourself first. So you always want to try to pay yourself 20% right off the check to put towards your retirement. That's kind of the rule of thumb to go by. What we also want you to do is check with your employers. You don't want to leave money on the table. So some employers do offer either registered pension plans or RRSP plans where they actually make contributions and match the funds that you put in. So always double check with your employer and see if they have that as an option. So how to save. So I know we went over this, but I am going to go over it again. So of course, the earlier you start, the better. But of course, starting is the main important thing. It's truly never too late to start saving for retirement. The important thing is to start. A great first step would be to open either an RRSP or a TFSA if you don't yet have a pension plan through work. It is a process that will take about 10 minutes. You won't even need to invest a dime to start. How much you should contribute, realistically, as much as you can, because the more you have, the less you need to worry about running out. It's always better to have too much than not enough. The specific answer is a bit complicated, but I will go into some strategies on how to figure out what that number will be for you if you want it specifically made for your strategy and what you want to be doing come retirement, because everyone's dream end goal is different. A good idea to kind of just see if you're on track is at age 30, you should have about 1 year of salary saved. At age 40, you should have about 3 years of salary saved. At age 50, you should have about 6 years of salary saved. At age 60, you should have 8 times your salary saved. And at age 67, you should have about 10 years of your salary saved. Again, check with your employee matching, because of course, if they can match your investments, then you don't have to invest as much. The other rule of thumb and a great practice is to automize. paying yourself. So you can set this up between your checking account and your retirement account or your tax-free savings account. And this way you won't forget to save. You can set it up so that it comes out the same day as your paycheck. And then that way it's done. You don't have to think about it. Not having to remember to put away the money will make saving a lot easier. And automating the saving is the most effective way to make sure that you achieve your goals. So you can also have your employer, if they do the matching for the contributions, you can make sure that they set it up so that the direct deposit goes right off of your check into your savings account. But you can also set it up with your bank and just do automatic transfers. So I'm going to go through kind of different ages and what you should kind of be thinking about or putting your focus on at each age. So in your 20s, this is right after you're done school, you freshly turned 18, maybe you got your first credit card. This is when you're just trying to get out into the job force, you're trying to find a solid income that you're bringing in. So what you want to focus on now is just starting to invest. It doesn't have to be any specific amount, but even if it's $20 or $25 a month, that's a start. Take advantage of that compound interest because it's time in the market, not timing the market, that's the most important. In the book Financial Freedom, Self-Made Millionaire, Grant Sabatier explained that the younger you are, the more time you have for your money to grow. So if you keep saving and investing, your net worth will keep growing. And because of compounding, the growth will be accelerated as you go. So the more you set aside now, and the earlier you start, the less you have to set aside each month or each year. If you did get that first credit card, just avoid racking up any credit card debt. Keep living within your means. Don't blow your bonuses or get any extravagant purchases. Just try to stay humble for the first little while. It's always a good idea to open a high interest savings account, start building that emergency savings, which would be that 3 to 6 months like we talked about last video. And then make it a point of just being consistent with your investing, consistent with your emergency fund, and consistent with paying off your bills to just kind of make sure that you're always staying one step ahead. And then the other thing to focus on is maintaining that healthy credit score. So when you first turn 18, your credit score is it's brand new. You don't have any dings against you. You don't really have anything increasing it either. But what you can do at this time is you can keep that credit score climbing by making sure that your debt stays at a good level and making sure that your bills are paid on time. So high interest savings. So this is what you can use for your emergency fund. This can also just be what you use as a fund, or sometimes emergencies need to be handled that same day. A tax-free savings account, the money's stuck in there for up to 5 business days. So having about $1,000 in a high interest savings account will just make sure that those day-to-day need money right now situations are covered. But you can also, like I said, use it for just a fun account and then have your other accounts be for your retirement. So it's a risk-free account. Money inside of a federally insured savings account does not get invested in stocks or bonds, but you'll make next to nothing on the funds of the account. Currently, the highest yielding savings account is under 1% on dollars saved. So you have, it's not really doing much for you, but it's just an account that's out of sight, out of mind, and you do have just kind of a rainy day fund. The next would be your tax-free savings account. This will be maybe for that intermediate phase. It can also be for your retirement as well. So the good rule of thumb with choosing between a tax-free savings account and an RRSP is if you earn less than $50,000 a year, use a tax-free savings account. If you earn more than $50,000 a year, use an RRSP. So with the tax-free savings account, it began in 2009, and it was a way for individuals who are 18 years and older, who have a valid SIN number, to set up a money that is tax-free throughout their lifetime. Contributing to a tax-free savings account, it's not a tax-deductible income for tax purposes. However, the money that is acquired in the tax-free savings account is tax-free when it's withdrawn. So that's kind of the asset compared to the RRSP. There are a couple different types of tax-free savings accounts. The most common is just a simple deposit, but there is also annuity contracts and arrangement in trusts. Banks, insurance companies, credit unions, and trust companies can all issue TFSAs, and the annual dollar amount has changed throughout the years. Just to give you an idea, from 2009 to 2012, it was $5,000 a year. From 2013 to 2014, it was $5,500. In 2015, it was $10,000. In 2016 to 2018, it was 500 or 5,500, pardon me. In 2019 to 2021, it was 6,000. If you want to know exactly how much room is available in your tax-free savings account, you can log on to your CRA account and you can check for contribution room. It is accumulative, so if you haven't contributed to it as of yet, don't fret. You still have all that available room since 2009. Now with an RRSP, it's a little different. It is a retirement savings plan that you establish when you register, to which you or your spouse or your common law partner can contribute. It is deductible on your taxes and reduces your income. But how it works is that they'll give you the taxes back from your income from this year, but then you pay taxes on the withdrawals when you retire. So why I say that you want to do this if you're making over 50,000 is that typically people that retire are pulling out less than $50,000 a year. So you'll actually save in taxes on that income. Whereas if you're only taking out or making like 25,000 right now, you're probably not going to live off of less than that when you retire. So you'll be paying the same amount of taxes then as you are now. So you might as well go the tax-free route and do a TFSA. Again, you can check your contribution room by going to the My Account or the My CRA mobile app and checking for RRSP contributions. One of the most important rules to consider on the amount of money that you can contribute into the account any given year is it's either 18% of your past year's income or a maximum amount, whichever is smaller. So you just have to check to see what the amount is for yourself. Other retirement plans that you might want to look into is company pension plans, defined pension plans, a defined benefit pension plan, defined contribution plans, deferred profit sharing plans. There's other investment accounts such as locked-in GICs and mutual funds. There's also pension adjustments. So if you want to read a little bit more about those, just pause the video and read more. You could also ask your employer about these and see which ones are qualified to you. So now you're like, okay, so I have an investment account. What do I invest in? What do I buy? So there's various funds that you can consider when you're saving for retirement. You can have an actively managed fund. So those funds have been around for decades. They're very strong among the retailer investors. They hold various stocks and bonds, sometimes both. And whether it is mutual funds or SAG funds, they're ideal for people who don't want to have to choose their own stocks. Maybe you're somebody who's like, I just want to set it, forget it. I don't want to have to worry about it. I want someone to do it for me. I don't have time. I don't really care. I just want to know that I'm good in retirement. If that's you, then probably having a managed account is the best case scenario. So a professional fund manager will take care of the account for you, and they will make sure that they pick the right stocks and the right bonds and set the fund up properly. An index fund is another option. An index fund is similar to an active mutual fund or SAG fund, except there are no stock pickers. So these funds track the benchmark index, such as the S&P 500 or the World Index. And that's going to kind of be what your return is going to be, is just based off of those. The next is ETFs. So very similar to a mutual fund, they are a basket of securities like stocks and bonds, and they're like an index fund in many tracks of benchmarks. But how they differ is that they are on a stock exchange, which means that they're priced in real time and can be bought and sold at any point during the day. That's So that's kind of the main difference between that and an actively managed account. And then there's also target date funds. One of the most popular RRSP investments these days are a targeted fund, which are classes of all-in-one mutual funds or ETFs that are adjusting their assets and class mix automatically as you age. So to give you an example, when you're in your 30s, then they might have 90% stocks and 10% bonds. Now, as you get older, it will self-adjust to create the bond mix a little bit more strongly and make it more conservative as you go along. So it is going to be aggressive when you're younger because you have the time in the market. As you get older, it will adjust to being a little bit more conservative. Now, you can do that with the other three options. You just need to either be talking to your advisor, doing it manually, or just being mindful that we want to start being more conservative as we move forward. So stocks are considered to be the best thing for growth, and then bonds are going to be more safe. So that's why, like I was saying, you do the stocks at the beginning of your investment journey, and then you transition into doing more bonds at the end. Now, once you get into your 30s, you're established in your career typically. You kind of know what you're making per year, ballpark. You have a little bit more responsibilities on your plate. You might have a family, or you might have some kids, or you might have a mortgage. So your goal here is to, number one, try and make as much income as possible. Sometimes that does mean generating additional streams of income like we talked about. You can look back at that video to come up with some ideas. Diversification is crucial in this stage. Just making sure that you're using your time wisely. Increasing your retirement contributions at this stage is a great idea. So it's fine to have a few mishaps in your 20s, maybe not even start investing in your 20s, but by the time you turn 30, you are at your peak earning years. So this is when you want to take advantage of that, that financial increase. It's important to go through and review your retirement accounts, make sure you're on track to hit that $1 million ballpark finish. And if you've already enrolled in RRSPs, then this is a great time to increase your contributions. It's also great to consider setting up a TFSA if you haven't yet already, and just having two different accounts going. Having that money conversation with anyone you are sharing your finances with. So if you're sharing your finances with a partner or with a child or with even a roommate, it's nice to have those financial conversations if money is being tied. So just knowing, what are your goals for the future? Do we have different money goals? Do we have different views on money? How are we raised? Maybe going back to the initial first videos and having those conversations on what our mindset on money is, and figuring out, are we aligned? Are we different? How are we going to make our differences work so that we both get what we want come retirement? The one other thing you want to think of is, if you do have some assets, if you have a house, if you have a car, if you have savings, if you have that emergency fund, if you have some retirement set aside, it's very important to create a will, to make sure that you know where everything is going and you're not going to cause a headache for your loved ones, or a lot of fees for probate when they're trying to figure out where everything is going. So in your 30s, setbacks are inevitable. Life does not go in a straight linear line, which means that your net worth to your investments, to your retirement, will likely experience setbacks at some point. You could lose your job, maybe the market crashes, maybe we have a crisis like we're in right now. But the key to all of this is just remember, again, it's time in the market, not timing. So don't panic, just stick to your plan. Any big event looks big when we're in it, but when you zoom out and you look at the grand scheme of things, it's literally just a dent in your roadmap. So of course, it's easier said than done to not panic. In March 2020, we saw the markets drop 35%. So of course, that's going to be a shock to the system. It's going to be overwhelming, especially if you are one of those people that were really close to retirement at that time. It is scary to feel like maybe all of your nest eggs could be wiped out. However, when the market falls, you have to try not to panic. Keep contributing, put your mind over matter, and what the market loses when it falls, it makes back up when the stocks start to rise again. So if you did lose your job and you're worried about your income reduction, review your budget, and you can always cut back your investment contributions until you get back on your feet. If you do on a constant basis feel overwhelmed about your investments, it could be a sign that your risk tolerance is maybe not exactly best suited for you. So you may need to contact your advisor, or if your advisor is no longer around or you don't have an advisor, let us know and we can help you. Make it so that it's comfortable for you. At the end of the day, no one should be stressing about their retirement, whether it's not enough or it's too much fluctuation. There should be a happy medium. In your 30s, you want to be building your net worth. So like I mentioned, buying a house, increasing your salary, paying down your debts, recovering from any setbacks you had in your 20s, and then getting life insurance, which I'm going to be talking about coming up. So if you want to figure out how much you need for retirement, because I know the biggest question is, will I have enough and will I outlive it? So the best way to figure that out is to figure out what that number is for you specifically. Some people just want to relax at home come retirement. Some people want to be on jet skis and traveling the world. And of course, those come with different numbers as far as what you need for retirement. So estimate retirement expenses. There's no way to figure out how much you'll need or how much you're going to use officially come retirement, but there is a way to get a ballpark. So what you want to do is you want to figure out your day-to-day living, such as food, clothing, transportation, entertainment, restaurants, movies, play, travel, flights, hotels, gas, driving, taxes, all of the above. I believe we did go over this at the beginning of the series, but we'll go over it again. The other major important thing to think of is how long will all these fees be coming out with no income? So when do you want to retire? The first step is to create a retirement plan and figure out when you want to retire. Are you going to retire at 18? Probably not. Whenever you darn please, though, is the answer of when you can retire. You just need to make sure that you have enough in your retirement account. So should you choose to retire late, you'll probably be able to save less each year over a longer period of time. But if you want to retire early, then you have to get aggressive with your retirement plan. So there's no official retirement age in Canada. But that being said, usually it's around 65 that the government provided amounts do start getting paid out, or the government accounts start getting paid out. So you have your CPP, you have your old age security that kicks in around 60 to 65. Will the retirement age increase or change? That is possible. In 2012, Prime Minister Stephen Harper did announce that between 2023 and 2029, retirement ages could be raised to 67. However, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau did cancel that and has left it as 65. So we will see on if that increases or not. But the idea is, the best rule of thumb is to make sure that you're your retirement plan. You're not relying on the government and having the government tell you when you want to retire or when you can retire. You want to make that choice. And that's where having the FIN number and figuring out how much you need to set aside per month is beneficial. To give you a ballpark of how much you'll need, a BMO wealth management study in 2015 found retired Canadians spent about $28,800 per year on average. Adjusting for inflation, that works out to being about $32,000 per year as of 2021. So if you're 65 and you plan to retire, expecting to live until 90, you're looking at around 800,000 to a million on hand for retirement comfortably. So that's that $1 million mark that I mentioned previously. So let's go further into the future. Have you thought about your 80th birthday? Most people imagine having financial security by then, ready to retire, enjoying a stress-free life on the beach. However, have you considered that cost of your dream life? Have you calculated how much that's going to cost? There are ways to kind of determine that, and I'm going to go over a few ways right now, but you have to decide. Are you planning on buying a boat, maybe a new car? Maybe you want to go on a bunch of vacations or cruises because you didn't when you were working. Do you want a house near the beach? There's a whole bunch of possibilities of what your retirement can look like. And until you kind of start envisioning that, you can't figure out how much that will cost, and you can't figure out how much you need to set aside to guarantee that that happens. Until you do that, you're kind of in a guessing game, and you may or may not get what you wanted. So a couple different ways of how you can calculate your FID number. So one, you can do the 4% withdrawal rate. So what you would do here is you would take the amount that you earn on an annual basis and divide it by 4%. So that if you made $40,000 a year divided by 4%, that's your $1 million mark. Another rule of thumb is to do the desired annual retirement income. So that's writing down, you can take a budget sheet and do a futuristic values of what your expenses will be, what your lifestyle will look like, and then you times that by 25. Again, with our calculation of 40,000 times 25, get that $1 million mark again. The other is doing 70% of your working income. So the rule estimates that you need 70% of your 100% pre-retired income. And if you take 70% of your income and times it by 25, that will give you an option for your retirement. So in this case, it's 1.75 million. Now you might be looking at this value and being like, I'm nowhere close. That's okay, because you're still closer than you were if you didn't invest anything. This is also a general rule of thumb. So you might need a little bit more, you might need a little bit less, but again, the purpose is not the amount, but it's just starting and being consistent. So your FIN number is going to be made up of getting rid of your debt, potentially selling your mortgage. Maybe you want to downsize into a smaller home, or you can have your house paid off so it's an asset. You will have your RRSPs. You might have some open investments like the GICs that I mentioned. You'll have your tax-free savings, and you'll have your insurance that we're going to get into in a moment. With your insurance, I will be doing a whole nother video on this because I think it's a very important topic that we glaze over a lot of the time. But your insurance is what is going to make sure that your plan does not get derailed. It does not get derailed whether you have health issues, whether you lose your job, whether you pass away. Now you're just setting up your next generation to just be that much closer to having what they need and where they need to be and not setting them back. So having insurance is going to make sure that no matter what life throws at you, you're going to still be on track. You just might need to take a pause, get yourself together, and then keep going, but you're not going to have a setback. Angie, if you want to kind of elaborate on that, and I would love for you, if you're comfortable, to kind of share your story and experience and how it's aided you to have insurance.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Shay. And thank you everybody for joining for this entire series. We really do hope that it's going to provide value for you currently and as you go forward. You know what, protecting yourself is something that, you know what, sometimes when you're growing up, you hear this from your parents. Maybe you haven't heard it at all, but when I was growing up, my parents didn't necessarily talk about finances. All I knew is that my dad worked, he had his own business, and my mom would go out shopping. So that was our family. And then as I grew up and got married, and they were into my, well, it's not my ex, but my partner's family started about insurance and RSPs and such like that. But where I want to get to is what happens when life throws you a curveball? It happens. I can tell you that we just spoke about our 30s. Well, when I was in my 30s, I went through not just one traumatic event, I went through two highly traumatic events that I'm still amazed that I didn't go through bankruptcy with it. The first one was divorce. Now we know that divorce is one of the most traumatic events, emotionally, but also financially. It can leave you destitute if you're not well protected. I can tell you at that time that I did not have the financial wherewithal. I just knew that I had to go, and I didn't care. I wasn't looking after myself. Now that was one area, and I can tell you that I was still floundering when the second one hit. And that's when, after I'd found the next love of my life, and we lived more in those 6 years that we were together than most people do in a lifetime. However, he passed away very suddenly. And that was traumatic enough as it was. But the key was that he knew enough about insurance to have insurances, and he had a will, but it wasn't updated. So here again is importance to make sure that you are set up. Had my partner at that time, we had just bought a house together. We bought, it was close to a $200,000 home. At that time, that was kind of mid-range. The housing market has really gone up where I live, but really Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada is one of the more affordable places within the country. That said, like I said, we had just bought this house and we had a mortgage. Now, my partner was very much into insurance. He was a finance manager. So had we not had mortgage insurance, I would have found myself having to sell the house immediately and been under an extreme amount of stress. So I knew at that point that even with the insurance that wiped that mortgage right out, that I would have a amount of years that I could maintain that house. See, there's another thing, is that you need to be able to see what it costs for yourself going forward. You may have one area looked after, but what about utilities? What about looking after property taxes and the upkeep? So it's all of these things that, by having somebody like a financial coach at your fingertips, you can make sure that they are looking after your best interests when you might not be of the mindset to do so. So all of that said, it's taken me a long time to recover, and that's why we're putting these videos together, is so that you don't need to maybe go through some of those pitfalls. And even when you do, that you're going to be better empowered and educated so that you know how you can best handle them. So all of that said, you never know when life is going to throw you a curveball. So by having yourself protected at least as much as you can is only going to serve you better going forward. You never know what kind of health issues are going to arise. So there again, protect yourself in that instance. Life insurance can be a huge thing as far as protecting yourself with like end of life. You know what? We don't want to ever think of this, but the reality is that there's two things that are constant in life: death and taxes. So if we can protect ourselves from both of those, be a good thing, right? So with that said, just a little bit of information with life insurance. You may be thinking, well, what does that even mean? How much do I need? How do I calculate that? Again, that's where a financial coach can come in and help you figure that out. But we want to give you the information so that you can at least know a little bit. So there's something called a dime method, where you can calculate how much life insurance protection your family needs. So, for example, you buy insurance to have enough coverage for a potential loss. No one would buy $100,000 of coverage for a $500,000 house, or $20,000 coverage for a $50,000 car. The numbers just don't add up, right? So likewise, why would you only have $100,000 worth of life insurance coverage when your actual need is $500,000? So as we move into our 40s, which is, that's where I'm at, right? So I'm now at the point of cleaning up all of this stuff that happened from my 30s. So therefore, like I say, if you have the protection in place earlier, it's only going to serve you going forward. However, you can only do the best you can with what you got at a given time. Thus the education part. So in your 40s, to best prepare yourself, live within your means. My goodness, you know, we try so hard to keep up with the Joneses when the Joneses don't give a rat's behind about how you're doing. So pay attention to yourself. Anybody else is none of your business. So for the most of us, the older we get, the more vulnerable we become to lifestyle creep. We try harder and harder to, again, to have all the stuff. You know what? Here's a valuable lesson. We all end up in the same way at the end of our time. You can't take any of it with you. So pay attention to what you're able to purchase and do that wisely. If you're looking to make big purchases like a house or a car, review your financial situation and make sure that you set a reasonable budget in order to do so. Weigh pros and cons and think about whether you really do need that upgrade. What's your intention? What's the purpose? Is it for practicality, or is it just for appearance sake? Teach your kids about money. Oh my goodness. This is something where I say that it would be so good to have this as a subject in school, or at least an addendum. However, whatever the case is, that's great for the future. We're dealing with right now. And all you can do is what you can do right now. And if you have children, or if you have grandkids, if you have nieces, nephews, whatever, teach them about the value of money. Teach them a good money mindset. It does not have to be scary. You don't have to fear it, but teach them how it works. You know what? It's easy to get off track, but you know what? Just recognize it, become aware, and then do something in order to get yourself back on track. 72% of people say that they put their children's interests ahead of their own in order to save for retirement. And guess what? They regret not teaching their children about money at a young age. Now, obviously, you need to support your children in their early stages, But making sure that they have a strong financial education can help prevent your retirement savings from getting derailed. Make a habit to speak openly about family finances. Don't have it like a dirty little secret, and equip them with the financial tools like savings and a checking account, and show them how it works. Not that it's just like this endless money supply, but that, or to always use your credit card, because your kids will end up saying, "Oh, mom, can't you just, use your credit card?" And I remember telling my kids that, guess what? You have to have money in that account in order for the card to work. Same thing with your bank account. Take care of your health. You know what? What is wealth at the end of the day? Your health is wealth. You can have all the money in the world, but when you aren't healthy, does it make a difference? You might be able to afford some things you might if you didn't have that, but your quality of life isn't there. You need to prioritize your health now. As we age, we are prone to a weakening immune system, weakening health. Your body gets weaker. So treat your body as a temple. I gotta admit, I need work on this. We all do. But it's never too late. Don't do it now so that you can preserve the shell that encompasses your soul and your heart. So moving into your 50s and 60s, I remember thinking 50s and 60s was so far away, like it was like so far in the distance. Yeah, it's not so much anymore. So retirement is not what it used to be, and you need a certain amount in order to retire comfortably. What is that? What does that mean? Well, your emergency savings, as we mentioned, as we covered, should be 6 times your salary by your 50th birthday. How many people are at that point? And then by your 60th birthday, should be 8 times your salary. Well, you know what? Company retirement plans have changed. Greater life expectancies, retirement aspirations and goals have changed. Inflation is rising. Canadians estimate on average that they will need an average of $756,000 in personal savings for a comfortable retirement. And that's according to a survey by the CIBC. When it comes to retirement on your 65th birthday, will you have enough to live off of for the rest of your life? If you're like most people, the answer is no. I can put my hand up. But I can tell you that you can work now in order to get there. In fact, according to a study by CIBC, the vast majority of people, 90% in fact, do not plan to achieve the lifestyle they want when they hit retirement. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? But the first step is knowing where you're at. Knowing where you're at and what you have in place now so that you can plan towards that. If you are already at your 50s and 60s and this is hitting you as a major shock, reach out to us, because there can still be hope. It doesn't mean that you need to be devastated at this point. This is educating you so that you can put certain things in place to go forward. Here in Canada, when you hit 65, there are certain government benefits. And I know that in the States, there are some as well. For that, we have some people in mind that could go over those specifics or reach out to somebody in, say, tax accounting or in an accounting background that would be able to pinpoint some of these numbers for you in the States. So For Canada, there's no money fairy. Your parents may just have made her up in order to get you to relax about your future. Retirement money must come instead from two primary sources, which are your savings and government benefits. So old age security is one of those government pension or government benefits that is available at 65 or older. It is not dependent on employment status or history. If you have a pulse and a Canadian citizenship, you're probably going to receive OAS, right? So at last check, the benefits were just over $600 a month. But if you earn too much, currently over $128,137 to be exact per person, the government will take back every dime of it in the form of clawbacks, which in fancy government terms is known as OAS recovery tax. So another option for government benefits is CPP. Now, this is a government administered pension, not only for retirees, but also for those who are disabled, and relatives of those who die after having paid into CPP. CPP benefits will oh my goodness. CPP benefits will be entirely dependent on how much you've contributed to the system over the years through payroll taxes. Now, this has been something of a debate for the citizens of Canada and how long this will last. There's a big question mark how long CPP will be available. It's just another reason to cover your butt and look at alternate ways that you can go into your retiring years with an alternate plan in place, whether it is to supplement these two areas or if it is to live off of if some of these are no longer available. Feel free to pause on this screen for all the nitty-gritty details here, just to get more knowledge. So feel free to pause the screen and take down any notes that you want to on this. So you may be thinking, after all this knowledge, it's like your head might be spinning and be thinking, I have no idea what I'm doing, where to go, what do I start with, what do I do? So which retirement accounts should you draw from first? Well, your mission as a retiree is to pay the absolute minimum in taxes as legally possible. And that's going to be different for each retiree. Okay. And a smart retiree will consult a professional financial advisor at least once to construct a strategy. If you do not have one already, or you're looking to get a second opinion, please reach out to either Shay or myself, and we would be more than happy to work with you on this. So try to draw from accounts that are not going to trigger a clawback. Doug Dahmer, an Ontario-based retirement income specialist, recommends that most people should put off collecting one or both old age security and CPP until they hit the age of 70. You could also convert your RRSP into a RIF, which is a registered retired income fund. You could draw on that early and withdraw from both of those funds. Okay, this will result in an overall major tax savings and also reduce the OAS clawback. Some people may be thinking, what happens if the money runs out? It's a real concern. Unless you like the idea of crashing on your kid's futon a few years into your retirement, how long your money will last is about the most pressing question you'll want to address long before your actual retirement. There are many families that are what you call sandwich families now. Sandwich in the sense that you've got middle-aged folks that are raising their young ones, but at the same time, they're looking after their parents as well. And that could be for a variety of reasons. One of those reasons, let's help design a plan where it's not out of necessity, whether it is for health-wise or if it's financially. Again, make sure, take some notes on this page, lots of amazing details, fine-tuned details in here. So make sure to pause and go over that. And again, if you have any questions, please make sure to reach out to Sharon myself. So as a summary here, when it comes to retirement planning in Canada, starting early is the key, but starting regardless of any age is important. Shay, do you want to just continue on here as to what our summary is all about?
Absolutely. So I don't want you to look at this and being like, well, I didn't start in my 20s. Well, I didn't start in my 30s. Well, I didn't start in my 40s. Here I am in my 60s. Now what? At the end of the day, moving your account from $0 invested to $25 invested is still a win. It's still $25 extra that you get for retirement. And if you are concerned and you are watching this and being like, I am nowhere close, I think I'm in the negatives right now. We've had situations where we hopped on calls with clients and they actually found out that they had a lot more than they thought just by making those calls to the banks, checking their CRA, seeing what's all out there. So maybe just setting up a call is what you need, just to give you some clarity, some peace of mind. Although government aid is provided, you don't want to bank on that. Like Angie said, CPP might not be there. So some of these, especially if you are younger, may not be there in 20 years from now or 30 years from now. Compound interest is your best friend when time is there. So it's better to be over-prepared than under-prepared. It's better to have more than enough than not enough. So it's always better to just stick with that rule of thumb or go above and beyond that rule of thumb at that 20% every paycheck. Always check with your work to see if there is any options for extra contributions on the table. Never give away free money. And make sure to ask yourself these questions. Do you feel on track with your retirement, whether it comes to your savings or just simply creating a plan? What amount do you feel like you need when you retire? And are you just making that number up in your head? Or is that number something that you actually calculated? And are you close? If you did calculate your retirement number, I would love to see what that amount was for you. So leave it in the comments and we'll see who has the highest retirement number. And I'd like to pick your brain and see what you plan on doing when you retire. Again, I know I've said this phrase a million times, but I'm going to say it one more. Most people don't plan to fail. They fail to plan. So by creating this retirement plan, regardless of what age you're at, that means that you're one step closer to getting to exactly where you expect to be going. Whether that's where we wanted to go originally, it's where we can go now. So even if you only have a couple more days into retirement, you can plan out what you're going to do at the end of the week. If you have a couple years into retirement, plan what you're going to do at that time. and then just figure out what you can do today to get you closer to that goal. Might not be that exact goal, but what can get you the closest to that point that you can achieve today. Here are the resources of where I got the information. But if you need any help or guidance, please touch base with Angie or I, and we can help assist you to create that plan so that you won't fail. And we'll work with you through the years and get you to that retirement goal. And hopefully, we all are sitting in those lawn chairs on a beach somewhere, drinking Mai Tais, cheering to our retirement plan. Thank you all for coming, and we look forward to seeing you in the comments. Bye for now.